All right, so you want to know how to build a custom GPT that actually does something, right? Like, you want it to be able to connect to the world, not just act like basically ChatGPT 4 as the same shit as is going on. So, if that's what you want to learn, click on this video, then you're in the right spot. I'm going to take you through, assuming pretty much no coding knowledge, because I want pretty much everybody to be able to follow this tutorial. And huge shout out to my guy who asked for this tutorial on the last video, commented. Just thank you for watching the videos and like being interested, I guess. It's actually super cool. So hopefully this really answers your question, and anyone else watching can learn something cool about custom GPTs. And if there's any other things you want to learn, put them in the comments. I'll make a tutorial next day. No problem. All right, so let's start this. Let me get over here. Yeah, so we're going to start completely from scratch. So I already built a version of this, right? So yeah, I've already built a version of this. It's called Chuck GPT. So all right, you ask it, what about last night's game? And so it'll go out and get some data about the latest NBA games, and then use that new knowledge to answer questions from the user, sort of in the voice of Charles Barkley on TNT, if you guys watch NBA ever. So this tutorial can apply to any custom GPT that you make. This is just a random stupid example that I made. I just thought it was kind of funny because it's Charles Barkley, and if you take a look at the description, the picture is pretty funny. Okay, so let's start from scratch. So I'm going to pretty much no cuts, try and get this done, obviously as quickly as possible. Okay, and I'm going to use the same API, and you can use... Actually, let's take a step back. Okay, so how does something like this work, right? So unfortunately, you need to buy the OpenAI subscription, the Pro subscription. If you don't want to do that, that totally makes sense. I'm going to make another video in a second about the Assistants API, which is a separate sort of thing from OpenAI. That all you need is a developer account. You don't need to buy the description. So I'm going to make a video about that, but that's something else. But if you do have the subscription, then you can build your own custom GPT. So you probably know what that is if you're clicking on this video. And so when you create your own custom GPT, you're essentially making your own version of ChatGPT that's more specific, to do something more specific. It can be for memes, it can be for, I don't know, really whatever you want it to be. And you can make it public so that anybody can use it. And so I'm going to put my Chuck GPT in the description just for fun if you want to try. Great. So obviously you don't want it to just do nothing or just answer random questions. You want to actually have your GPT be able to interact with the internet. I think that's sort of the main thing that people miss. And so the cool thing about custom GPTs is that they can take what's called actions, right? So if you click create new action, you're going to see some things that if you've never coded before might look pretty intimidating, but trust me, they're really not. So an action is essentially something that the GPT can do on its own based on a question from the user. And if you're familiar, if you've used GPT Pro, then it will say like searching on Bing. And that's really just the same thing, except you can have it do whatever you want, essentially. Instead of just using Bing, you can have it, like this one, get NBA stats. Or you could have it do a Zapier action. Or you could have it get McDonald's prices on their latest McFlurry or whatever. It really could be anything with a public API. And so if you don't know what an API is, don't worry. It's really just asking for something on the internet and getting data back. That's really all it is. The syntax of the schema might be kind of confusing, but you could honestly just import a URL, and if that doesn't work, ask GPT for to make an open API schema for you. So I already have the open API schema for this project for my Chuck GPT. So I'm just gonna paste that in, and it may be you may not like know how to make your own API schema, which all you need to do is just find whatever API you want to use and then plug that URL into ChatGPT. But I'm assuming, based on the question that I got, that I think you already have an API in mind. So I'm going to skip that step and make that assumption. And I'm sorry if this is confusing. So you want to just paste in the API schema, and I'll have this in the description so you can copy it and then use this to copy and base it upon whatever API you're using. Okay, so then this is the API that I'm using from Rapid API. It's basically just a big collection of free APIs, which is really cool. You do have to put in credit cards, kind of annoying, but whatever. Okay, so it has some documentation on how you use an API. And I really want to stress, like, it can be scary to look at this if you have no coding background, but this is great. It's time to dip your feet into like the coding world, but I promise it's not too difficult. All right, so we have the open API schema, and so we're gonna put that in there, and then the next thing we need for a action is authentication. So all you do is copy the API key and your API key. Custom, that's the name, and then we want to copy the actual key. And so obviously you want to keep the key secret, but I'm just going to delete the API after this, so if you want to dox me and abuse it, that's fine. I don't care. Great. And so you need like the privacy policy, but I mean that's not a huge issue. You can just copy it from Rapid API. Great. So that is the action. We're going to come back and test this later. And then so you can obviously give it a name, description, instructions, conversation starters. And then knowledge is not, we're not going to mess with knowledge in this tutorial, but it's basically just giving it a file that it will be, the bot, the custom GPT will be able to remember while it's talking to users. So this could be NBA stats, but obviously it's never going to change. So that's not very useful. That's why we use something like an API where we're going out and asking for the latest NBA stats instead of just uploading maybe the games from tonight, because we want it to be updated to be talking to the users. So yeah, that's not very helpful for this specific tutorial. Great. And so we have our action, and so now like I'm just gonna go ahead and like fill in the simple information, and you can also use the GPT builder, which is like another custom GPT. This is sort of like a bot to help you make your own GPT, which is kind of meta. Great. So something like that. And then it will sort of update it for me. So you can think of this as it's taking its own action, which is kind of cool. Great, and you can see it added the instructions for me, added conversation starters, and then it adds like a random dolly picture. Okay, cool. So now we're gonna go back to the action and test it. Make sure that we did everything right. Come on. Okay, so it talked. Great. Okay, so I can break this down a little bit here for you guys. So as it's just listing off games from yesterday, it talked to the API, rapidapi.com, and it asked for information about this date, which is yesterday, which is awesome. And then so it got all of the information, the scores from yesterday. All right, great. So then you can save it, make it public, and then sort of just share. Great. So now we've made our own custom GPT that is able to go out and get some new information from the internet programmatically so that you're not constantly updating it, and they can answer cool questions for users. I hope you guys learned something. I hope that was interesting. I hope that answered your question. Thank you so much for asking for this tutorial. I absolutely love being able to answer any questions that you have. If it didn't answer your question, that's totally fine. Just let me know, and I'll help you out. Okay, yeah. Have a great night, everybody, and stay tuned. My next video will probably be about how to use the Assistance API, which is again pretty much free to use, and probably a little bit of a step up with some more coding. But don't worry, I really want to make a lot of these tutorials for beginners and for everybody. So I hope you learned something, and yeah, have a nice night.